This is without a doubt the biggest system bug in the entire history of life on Earth. It has eyes, but they're mounted on two stalks, and it has a mouth. But shaped like a straw with ridges. It has a body, but nobody knows what category to put it in. It doesn't look like a fish. It carries three completely contradictory biological traits all at once. With the wings of a bird, the gills of a fish, and the claws of a tiger, the world's top scientists argued for a full 60 years. Dissected thousands of fossils, and the conclusion they finally reached was that they had absolutely no idea what this thing was. We still can't explain why Earth would ever evolve such an absurd structure. It may not have evolved at all, but rather was designed. It has no ancestors and no descendants. It appeared out of thin air at a certain point in time, and then vanished completely. When you stare at the fossil, you start to notice those eyes perched on their stalks carry a kind of awareness that doesn't belong to that era. Like a probe sent from a higher dimension. Dropped into the ocean 300 million years ago. Observing the life forms that had just come into existence. It's called the Tully monster, the only creature in science ever officially named a monster. In 1958, a fossil hunter named Francis Tully cracked open an ordinary-looking rock. In that moment, he had no idea he'd just poked a hole in the theory of evolution. Inside the rock lay a black imprint about 30 centimeters long, so bizarre in appearance that this seasoned fossil hunter who'd spent half his life digging just stood there frozen for a full 3 seconds. He brought it to the Field Museum in Chicago. The leading paleontology expert at the time stared at it for 5 minutes and couldn't say a single word. Not out of excitement, but because his brain had completely crashed. It felt like a master technician who'd spent his whole life fixing iPhones, but with a knockoff game console displaying on the screen. The mollusk expert shook his head. The mouth looks like a squid's, but squid tentacles don't have teeth. The crustacean expert threw up his hands. The body looks like a shrimp's, but shrimp eyes don't look like that, not even close. Even the worm expert just sighed. Forget it, this one's way out of scope. For a full 10 years, no one could classify it, because it was just too scientifically impossible. On the existing tree of life, you simply cannot find a single branch to hang it on. Finally, with no options left, everyone just gave up trying, and officially named it the Tully monster. That's right, the scientific community straight up admitted we don't get it, this thing is just a flat-out monster. Over 70 years, humans dug from that site a total of 35,000 Tully monster fossils, but even with the most advanced CT scanning technology and the brightest minds from around the world brought in, nobody still dared to give it a definitive classification. Just when everyone was about to give up hope, in 2016, the top academic journal Nature published 2 papers back-to-back and dropped a bombshell. The Tully monster was actually a distant relative of us humans. A research team from Yale University magnified the Tully monster's eyes 1,000 times under an electron microscope and discovered is in nature an exclusive hallmark of vertebrates. Even more mind-blowing, mass spectrometry analysis showed that the chemical composition of its eyes was virtually identical to the pigments found in human eyes. Scientists also found at the center of its body a faint white line. They announced it was a notochord, which is essentially the precursor to a spine. The academic world exploded overnight. It was like finding a Ferrari engine inside a tractor. Everyone gasped. So this thing was actually an ancestor of early vertebrates. We humans 300 million years ago actually had this bizarre alien-looking distant relative, just as the supporters were cheering, getting ready to write the Tully monster into vertebrate textbooks. The plot twisted, and it was the kind that left everyone's face swollen from the slap. In 2023, a team from the University of Tokyo showed up armed with a micron precision 3D laser scanner. They didn't look at melanosomes, instead they reconstructed the 3D structure of 153 fossils. And the results revealed a gut-wrenching truth: that so-called notochord was actually just a trace left behind by the gut. Even more damning, through a detailed reconstruction of the head structure, they found that this creature's head was actually segmented. Do you understand what that means? A vertebrate's head absolutely cannot be segmented. That is an ironclad rule. Which means, the 2016 conclusion was completely overturned. It is not a vertebrate, it was kicked back into the wilderness of the unknown. As of right now, the only conclusion the scientific community agrees on comes down to one single sentence: it is an invertebrate. But exactly what kind? Don't ask, because the answer is nobody knows. If it were just weird looking, we could probably live with that, but what truly gives people the creeps about the Tully monster is its eerie sense of isolation. In paleontology, when we try to confirm the identity of a species, we usually look for its relatives. Take Archaeopteryx for example. Look backward and it resembles a dinosaur. Look forward and it resembles a bird. There's a transition in between. The logic holds together perfectly, but the Tully monster is a complete orphan. Even after digging up 35,000 fossils. Even though it once dominated the ancient Mason Creek ecosystem in numbers that were almost absurd, the moment you step outside those few quarries in Illinois, anywhere else in the entire world,